The deep space mining vessel Eternal Seeker drifted silently through the debris field of what had once been a great civilization. Captain Zethara watched the scanner displays with growing excitement as his crew worked to extract valuable materials from the ancient wreckage. The Zephyrian Confederation had been exploring this sector for 3 cycles now, but they had never found anything like this. "Captain, we have something unusual," called out Science Officer Velnax from her station. Her blue-scaled hands moved quickly across the control panels as she analyzed the readings. "There's a large structure buried in that asteroid cluster. It appears to be some kind of data storage facility." Zethara moved to stand behind her, his tall frame casting a shadow over the workstation. Like all Zephyrians, he had smooth blue skin, large black eyes, and a gentle disposition that made his species natural diplomats. The Confederation had been built on Zephyrian ideals of peace and cooperation between different alien races. "How old is it?" he asked, studying the energy readings on the screen. "Preliminary scans suggest at least 10,000 standard years, possibly older. The technology is unlike anything in our databases. Whoever built this was far more advanced than any civilization we know of." The captain made his decision quickly. "Prepare an excavation team. If there's knowledge to be gained from this find, the Confederation Council will want to study it immediately." 3 days later, the excavation was complete. The ancient data facility had been carefully extracted from the asteroid and brought aboard the Eternal Seeker. The structure was massive, nearly filling the ship's main cargo bay. Strange symbols covered its surface, and it hummed with residual energy despite its incredible age. Dr. Kexmore, the Confederation's leading xenoarchaeologist, arrived by transport ship to oversee the investigation. He was a Thessian, one of the 12 species that made up the Confederation. His people were known for their analytical minds and patient nature. "Fascinating," he whispered as he examined the structure. "The power source is still active after all these millennia. The builders clearly intended this information to survive." It took another week to safely access the data storage systems. When they finally managed to establish a connection, the amount of information was staggering. Thousands of years of history, science, philosophy, and culture flooded their computers, but it was the biological records that caught everyone's attention. "Captain, you need to see this," Dr. Kexmore called from his temporary laboratory. He had been working without rest for 2 days, absorbed in translating the alien database. Zethara found the doctor staring at a holographic display showing the image of a strange creature. It stood upright on 2 legs, had pale skin, and possessed only 2 eyes. Most remarkably, it appeared to have no natural weapons or armor of any kind. "What am I looking at?" the captain asked. According to these records, this species called themselves humans. They came from a planet they named Earth, located in what they called the Sol system. "But Captain, the things described in these files are absolutely incredible." Dr. Kexmore activated more displays, showing images and data about human physiology and behavior. "Look at this planet they evolved on. The atmospheric composition is 21% oxygen. 21%! That's toxic to most known life forms. The surface temperature varies by over 60 degrees in some regions. They have massive storms that can destroy cities, earthquakes that split the ground open, and volcanic eruptions that block out their sun." The captain studied the data with growing disbelief. No species could evolve on such a hostile world. "That's what I thought, but there's more. According to these records, humans not only survived on this death world, they thrived. They built great cities, developed advanced technology, and even began exploring space. But here's the truly unbelievable part." The doctor pulled up military records from the database. These humans apparently engaged in constant warfare with each other. They fought over resources, territory, ideology, and sometimes for no clear reason at all. The records describe weapons that could destroy entire cities, conflicts that lasted for years, and battles where thousands died in a single day. Zethara's gentle nature was horrified by such descriptions. Surely this must be some form of historical fiction. No intelligent species would engage in such self-destructive behavior. "I thought so too, but the records are incredibly detailed. They include genetic information, cultural studies, and even personal accounts from individual humans. If this is fiction, it's the most elaborate work of imagination ever created." Dr. Kexmore continued to scroll through the files, but here's what makes no sense at all. Despite all this violence and aggression, the same records describe humans as capable of incredible compassion. They formed bonds with other species, created art of stunning beauty, and would sacrifice their own lives to save strangers. The captain shook his head. That's impossible. A species cannot be both violently aggressive and deeply compassionate. Evolution doesn't work that way. Exactly. Which is why I believe these records must be fictional. Perhaps they were created as some form of entertainment or propaganda by the civilization that built this facility. Over the following weeks, teams of scientists from across the Confederation studied the human records. The more they learned, the more convinced they became that humans were fictional creatures. The biological data made no sense. Humans apparently had no natural weapons, yet they were described as formidable predators. They had relatively weak physical strength compared to most sentient species. Yet they supposedly dominated their entire planet. They lived short lives, yet they accomplished incredible feats of engineering and exploration. The cultural information was equally contradictory. Humans were described as both individualistic and highly social, aggressive yet peaceful, logical yet emotional. They apparently formed governments based on cooperation, while simultaneously engaging in constant conflict with each other. Dr. Vexhai, a young Zephyrian xenobiologist, became particularly interested in the human files. She spent months studying every detail, trying to understand how such a contradictory species could exist. The more I read, the more fascinating they become, she told her colleagues during a conference presentation. Even if they're fictional, the creators put incredible thought into making them seem real. Every aspect of their biology and culture is interconnected in complex ways. Her supervisor, Dr. Nalvex, was less impressed. They're clearly impossible creatures created for entertainment purposes. No species could survive the internal contradictions described in these files. A violent, aggressive species would destroy itself long before achieving space travel. A peaceful, cooperative species wouldn't develop the technology needed to survive on such a hostile world. The official report to the Confederation Council was clear and unanimous. The human records were classified as sophisticated fiction, possibly created as a form of historical allegory or entertainment by the unknown civilization. The files were archived in the Great Library on Zephyria Prime, catalogued alongside other examples of alien mythology and storytelling. Captain Zethara returned to his normal duties, occasionally wondering about the strange fictional species they had discovered. Dr. Kexmore moved on to other archaeological projects, though he sometimes found himself thinking about the elaborate human histories. Only Dr. Vexhai continued to study the files in her spare time. Something about the humans fascinated her. Their contradictions seemed less like poor storytelling and more like the complex reality of actual evolution. She began to wonder if perhaps the other scientists had been too quick to dismiss the records as fiction, but her concerns were noted and filed away. The Confederation had more pressing matters to deal with than impossible fictional species from an ancient database. The human records gathered dust in the archives, waiting for someone to take them seriously. That day would come sooner than anyone expected. 3 cycles had passed since the discovery of the ancient data cache. The human records had been filed away and largely forgotten by most of the Confederation scientists. Life in Zephyrian space continued as it always had, peaceful and predictable. Dr. Vexhai sat in her laboratory on the research station orbiting Kalax Prime, studying genetic samples from a newly discovered species of space-dwelling organisms. As one of the Confederation's leading xenobiologists, she was always busy with new discoveries. But in her spare time, she still found herself returning to the human files. She had read them so many times that she could recite entire sections from memory. The more she studied them, the more convinced she became that they might be real. The biological and cultural details were too complex and interconnected to be simple fiction. Dr. Vexhai, please report to the communication center immediately, announced the station's computer system. She sighed and saved her work. Interruptions were common in her line of work, usually involving urgent questions about some new discovery or classification request. The communications center was buzzing with activity when she arrived. Technicians moved between workstations while senior staff clustered around the main display screen. Commander Theloran, the station's director, noticed her arrival. Vexhai, good. We need your expertise on something unusual. What kind of unusual? She asked, moving closer to the main display. 3 hours ago, our deep space sensors detected an artificial signal from the outer rim. Grid reference 24 Alpha 7. The signal was clearly technological in origin, but it didn't match any known Confederation communication protocols. The display showed a series of mathematical sequences, simple but obviously created by an intelligent species. Prime numbers, basic geometric relationships, and what appeared to be attempts at establishing communication. "Have you tried responding?" HFY asked. "That's why we called you. The coordinates of this signal match something in the xenobiology database, specifically something from your research files." HFY felt her hearts begin beating faster. "Show me the exact coordinates." Commander Theloran pulled up a star chart. The signal was coming from a small yellow star system in a relatively empty region of space. HFY stared at the display, her mind racing. "Computer, cross-reference these coordinates with archived data file designation Human Sol Prime." Cross-reference complete. Coordinates match archived location data for the fictional Sol system by 99.7%. The communications center fell silent. Everyone turned to look at HFY, who was staring at the display in shock. "That's impossible," whispered Communications Officer Lexandra. "The human records are classified as fiction." "Apparently someone forgot to tell whoever is sending this signal," HFY replied, her voice barely steady. Commander Theloran made the decision quickly. "Prepare a response signal. Basic mathematics and peaceful intentions. If someone is out there, we need to establish contact." The response was transmitted within the hour. They didn't have to wait long for a reply. The incoming signal was much more complex than their simple mathematical greeting. It contained language patterns, cultural information, and what appeared to be crude but recognizable attempts at using galactic standard communication protocols. "Can we translate it?" asked the commander. The translation computers worked for several minutes before producing a result. When the text appeared on the screen, everyone in the communications center stared in disbelief. "Greetings to whoever receives this message. This is Captain James Mitchell of the United Earth Colonial Navy vessel Endeavour. We are humans from the planet Earth in the Sol system. We come in peace and hope to establish friendly contact with other intelligent species. Please respond if you receive this transmission." HFY sat down heavily in the nearest chair. "It's real. They're real." The implications hit everyone at once. The fictional species from the ancient database was not only real, but had apparently developed space travel and found them first. "We need to contact the Confederation Council immediately," Commander Theloran said. "This changes everything." Over the next several hours, communications flowed back and forth between the research station and the human vessel. The humans were eager to talk and seemed genuinely peaceful in their intentions. Captain Mitchell explained that they had been exploring space for several decades, slowly expanding outward from their home system. "We've been hoping to find other intelligent life," his message read. "Earth scientists always believed we couldn't be alone in the universe. We're excited to meet you." Dr. HFY found herself serving as the primary translator and cultural advisor. Her years of studying the human record suddenly made her the Confederation's leading expert on a real alien species. According to the ancient files, humans are extremely diverse in their thinking and behavior. She briefed the council during an emergency session. "They may not all share the same peaceful intentions as this Captain Mitchell." Council leader Zaramoth, an elderly Thessian known for her wisdom, leaned forward in her chair. "You believe the ancient records are accurate?" "I'm beginning to think they might be. The humans we're talking to match the descriptions perfectly. They're curious, adaptable, and seem to approach problems in ways that other species would consider unusual." "What about their alleged violent tendencies?" asked Council Member Korval, representative of the more militaristic species in the Confederation. HFY hesitated. "The records suggest that humans are capable of both great violence and great compassion, sometimes simultaneously. They appear to be natural soldiers, but they also seem to genuinely desire peace." The council debated for hours about how to proceed. Some members wanted to establish formal diplomatic contact immediately. Others urged caution, worried about the implications of meeting a species that had been described as both peaceful and warlike. Meanwhile, the communication with the human ship continued. Captain Mitchell shared information about human culture, technology, and history. Everything he described matched the ancient records with frightening accuracy. Humans had indeed evolved on a world that most species would consider uninhabitable. They had survived ice ages, asteroid impacts, and countless wars. They had developed technology through conflict and cooperation in equal measure. We're not perfect, Captain Mitchell admitted in one transmission. We've made a lot of mistakes throughout our history. We've fought wars, destroyed environments, and sometimes forgotten how to be kind to each other. But we've learned from those mistakes. We're trying to be better. Dr. Vexhi found this honesty refreshing. Most species tried to present themselves as peaceful and advanced when making first contact. Humans seemed willing to admit their flaws while still expressing hope for the future. The breakthrough came when Captain Mitchell shared technical specifications for human spacecraft. The designs were unlike anything in Confederation databases, but they clearly worked. The humans had developed faster-than-light travel using principles that Confederation scientists had dismissed as impossible. They built their technology through trial and error, Vexhi explained to the Council. According to these specifications, human ships shouldn't work, but obviously they do. They approach engineering problems in ways we never considered. The Council finally reached a decision. They would send a small diplomatic vessel to make formal contact with the humans. The mission would be led by experienced diplomats, but Dr. Vexhi would accompany them as cultural advisor. As preparations began for the historic first contact mission, Vexhi couldn't help but feel both excited and nervous. The ancient records painted humans as unpredictable and potentially dangerous, but also as capable of incredible loyalty and friendship. Soon the Confederation would discover which aspects of human nature were most accurate. The diplomatic vessel. Peaceful Dawn departed 3 days later, carrying a small crew toward what might be the most important meeting in galactic history. Behind them, the Confederation held its breath and waited to see what would happen when they finally met the impossible species that had somehow become real. The diplomatic vessel. Peaceful Dawn dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of an unremarkable star system. Ambassador Krelvash studied the sensor readings with growing amazement. The system contained 9 planets orbiting a yellow star, exactly as described in the ancient human records. "There it is," whispered Dr. Vexhi from her position at the science station. "The third planet from the star, Earth." Even from this distance, their sensors could detect signs of advanced civilization. Artificial satellites orbited the blue-green world, and energy signatures indicated large population centers across multiple continents. "Ambassador, we're receiving a transmission from the human vessel," reported Communications Officer Delvren. The main screen activated, showing the interior of what was clearly an alien spacecraft. The being addressing them matched the ancient descriptions perfectly. It stood upright on 2 legs, had pale skin, and possessed only 2 eyes. Most remarkably, it appeared completely defenseless, with no visible natural weapons or armor. "Greetings, friends from the stars," the human said, its voice transmitted through their translation systems. "I'm Captain Sarah Chen of the United Earth Colonial Navy ship Endeavor. Welcome to the Sol system." Ambassador Krelvash activated the response system. "Greetings, Captain Chen. I'm Ambassador Krelvash of the Zephyrian Confederation. We come in peace, hoping to establish friendly relations between our peoples." Captain Chen smiled, an expression that the translation computers indicated was meant to show happiness and friendship. "We're honored to meet you. Would you like to come aboard our ship for formal introductions? We've prepared what we hope will be suitable accommodations for your visit." Dr. Vexhi leaned toward the ambassador. According to the records, humans place great importance on face-to-face meetings. Accepting their invitation would likely be seen as a sign of trust and respect. The ambassador nodded. "We would be honored to visit your vessel, Captain Chen." 2 hours later, a small delegation from the Peaceful Dawn transferred to the human ship via shuttle. The moment they entered the Endeavor's docking bay, Dr. Vexhi was struck by how accurately the ancient records had described human technology. Everything was functional, but appeared almost primitive compared to Confederation standards. The walls were thick metal rather than advanced composite materials. The lighting was harsh and direct instead of the soft, adaptive illumination used on their ships, yet somehow it all worked together in a way that felt solid and reliable. Captain Chen met them at the airlock, accompanied by several other humans. She was smaller than most Confederation species, but she moved with a confidence that suggested she was far from helpless. "Welcome aboard the Endeavor," she said, extending her hand in what the ancient records identified as a human greeting gesture. "I hope our ship meets your environmental needs. We've adjusted the atmosphere and gravity to what our computers suggest might be comfortable for you." Ambassador Krelvash carefully shook the offered hand, noting that the human's grip was firm but not threatening. Thank you for your consideration, Captain. We are eager to learn more about your people. Captain Chen led them through the ship's corridors, explaining various systems and technologies as they walked. Dr. Vexhai found herself constantly amazed by how the humans had solved engineering problems using methods that Confederation scientists had never considered. Your faster-than-light drive is unlike anything in our databases, she commented as they passed the engine section. We call it the Henderson drive, named after the physicist who developed it, Captain Chen replied. It took us 40 years and hundreds of test flights to make it work reliably. We lost a lot of good people learning how to build it safely. The casual way she mentioned the deaths of fellow humans surprised the Confederation delegation. Most species would have focused on the technological achievement rather than the cost in lives. They gathered in the ship's conference room, where Captain Chen introduced them to her senior officers. Dr. Vexhai carefully observed each human, comparing them to the descriptions in the ancient records. The humans were indeed remarkably diverse. Their skin colors ranged from very pale to very dark. Their hair came in different colors and textures, and their facial features varied significantly. Yet they all worked together smoothly, suggesting a level of cooperation that seemed to contradict their reputation for conflict. We've prepared a brief presentation about human history and culture, Captain Chen explained. We thought it might help you understand our species better. The presentation began with images of Earth, showing the planet's diverse environments. Dr. Vexhai watched in fascination as the humans described surviving ice ages, volcanic eruptions, and massive storms with the same casual tone they might use to discuss the weather. Earth has had its challenges, admitted Commander Rodriguez, the ship's science officer. We've faced 5 major extinction events in our planet's history. Humanity almost didn't make it through several of them. But we're still here. The historical section of the presentation was more troubling. The humans openly discussed their violent past, showing images of ancient battles, medieval wars, and modern conflicts. They didn't try to hide or minimize their aggressive tendencies. We fought a lot of wars, Captain Chen admitted. Some were necessary for survival, others were caused by fear, greed, or misunderstanding. We're not proud of all our history, but we've learned from it. Ambassador Krelvash found this honesty both refreshing and concerning. How do we know you won't bring that same violence to the galaxy? Captain Chen was quiet for a moment before answering. You don't. We can't promise we'll never fight again. What we can promise is that we prefer peace when it's possible. We've seen what war costs, and we'd rather find better solutions. Dr. Vexhai asked about human technology and science. The answers revealed a species that approached problems through experimentation and adaptation, rather than theoretical planning. We tend to build something, test it, see what breaks, and then fix it, explained Lieutenant Kim, the ship's engineer. It's not the most elegant method, but it works for us. Your computers indicate that your warp drive shouldn't function according to known physics, Dr. Vexhai pointed out. Lieutenant Kim grinned. Yeah, we get that a lot. We figured out that known physics isn't always complete. Sometimes you have to try things that theoretically shouldn't work to discover what actually does work. The cultural exchange continued for several hours. The humans shared information about their art, literature, philosophy, and social structures. Everything matched the ancient records, but experiencing it firsthand was different from reading about it. These humans were indeed contradictory creatures. They showed deep compassion for their fellow crew members while casually discussing military tactics. They created beautiful art while maintaining weapons that could destroy cities. They spoke of peace while preparing for war. How do you reconcile these contradictions? Ambassador Krelvash asked during a private moment with Captain Chen. She considered the question carefully. I'm not sure we do reconcile them. We just accept that people can be complicated. Someone can be a loving parent and a fierce warrior at the same time. Someone can create beautiful music and design better armor on the same day. Maybe that's what makes us human. When the formal meetings concluded, Captain Chen offered to show them more of the ship. Dr. Vexhai was particularly interested in the crew quarters and recreational areas. The living spaces were small but comfortable, decorated with personal items that reflected each crew member's individual personality. The recreational areas included a gymnasium, where humans engaged in physical combat training alongside games and artistic activities. You train for combat even during peaceful missions? Dr. Vexhai asked. We train for everything, Captain Chen replied. Peace, war, exploration, survival. We've learned that being prepared for the worst usually means you can handle whatever actually happens. As the visit concluded, Ambassador Krelvash felt both impressed and worried. The humans were clearly intelligent, capable, and genuinely interested in peaceful contact, but they were also everything the ancient records had described: unpredictable, adaptable, and potentially very dangerous. What happens next? Captain Chen asked as the Confederation delegation prepared to return to their ship. We report back to our council, Ambassador Krelvash replied. They will decide how to proceed with formal diplomatic relations. We hope for the best, Captain Chen said, offering her hand again. Humanity has been looking forward to this day for a long time. We'd like to be good neighbors. As the peaceful dawn departed the Sol system, Dr. Vexhai compiled her observations into a detailed report. Her conclusion was both simple and complex. Humans were exactly what the ancient records claimed they were. That realization would have consequences none of them could yet imagine. The emergency session of the Confederation Council was unlike any in recent memory. Representatives from all 12 member species filled the great chamber on Zephyria Prime, their voices raised in heated debate. The first contact report had spread quickly through Confederation space, and the reactions ranged from excitement to terror. Ambassador Krelvash stood at the center podium, having just finished presenting his detailed account of the meeting with humanity. The chamber buzzed with urgent conversations in a dozen different languages. Order, order, called Council Leader Zaramoth, her voice cutting through the noise. We will address each concern in turn. Dr. Vexhai sat in the observer section, watching as the political reality of first contact unfolded. Her scientific report had been clear and objective, but politics was rarely driven by facts alone. Representative Korval of the Korvaxi Empire was the first to speak. His species was one of the more militaristic members of the Confederation, and his concern was obvious in his aggressive posture. Honorable Council members, we must face the truth about these humans. They are exactly what the ancient records described: a violent, unpredictable species that thrives on conflict. We have invited a predator into our peaceful galaxy. Murmurs of agreement rippled through sections of the chamber. The Korvaxi had significant influence among the more security-minded species. The humans spoke openly of their wars, their weapons, their willingness to fight, Korval continued. They did not even try to hide their violent nature. How long before they decide that our resources, our worlds, our people are worth taking by force? Representative Nathala of the peaceful Villani raised a tentacle in objection. The humans also spoke of peace, of cooperation, of learning from their mistakes. Should we not judge them by their current actions rather than their past? Their current actions include building warships and maintaining military forces, Korval shot back. The vessel that met our delegation was armed. They came to a peaceful first contact meeting prepared for battle. Ambassador Krelvash requested permission to respond. The human ship carried defensive weapons, but they made no threatening moves. Captain Chen and her crew were genuinely welcoming and open to cooperation. Of course they were welcoming, argued Representative Zektor of the Malaxian Collective. They are currently outnumbered and outgunned. But what happens when they bring more ships? What happens when they establish colonies in our territory? Dr. Vexhai watched the debate with growing alarm. The same contradictory nature that made humans fascinating from a scientific perspective was being interpreted as duplicity and threat by the political leadership. The debate continued for hours. Representatives shared concerns about human unpredictability, their history of warfare, and their apparent comfort with violence. Even the species that argued for caution rather than hostility seemed worried about the implications of contact. Representative Thelorin of the Thessians tried to inject reason into the discussion. Perhaps we should establish formal diplomatic protocols before making any permanent decisions. The humans have requested peaceful contact. Should we not explore that possibility? The ancient records detail dozens of human conflicts, Korval replied, pulling up holographic displays of warfare from the human database. They fought wars that lasted years, destroyed entire cities, and killed millions of their own species. This is not the behavior of a peaceful civilization. Those records are thousands of years old, pointed out Representative Laxandra of the Zephyrians. Species can evolve culturally as well as biologically. Can they? Korval challenged. Or do they simply become better at hiding their true nature until they're strong enough to reveal it? Council leader Zaramoth called for a recess to allow private deliberations among the various species delegations. During the break, Dr. Vexhai approached Ambassador Krelvash with her concerns. "Ambassador, I think there's been a fundamental misunderstanding," she said urgently. "The Council is interpreting human adaptability as deception, their military preparedness as aggression. I've tried to explain that humans appeared genuinely peaceful," the ambassador replied. "But Korval makes compelling arguments about their potential threat. Their potential threat is exactly what makes them valuable allies," Dr. Vexhai argued. "The ancient records show that humans are fiercely loyal to their friends and devastating to their enemies. We should want them as allies, not drive them away as threats." When the session resumed, the tone had shifted noticeably. More species representatives were expressing concerns about human intentions, influenced by the Korvaxi arguments about preventive action. Representative Korval stood to address the chamber with a formal proposal. "Honorable council members, we face a clear choice. We can wait for the humans to build their strength and potentially threaten our peaceful civilization, or we can act now to contain this threat." The chamber fell silent as the implications became clear. "I propose that we send an ultimatum to the human species," Korval continued. "They must agree to remain within their current solar system and cease all expansion into galactic space. If they refuse, we must be prepared to use military force to protect our member worlds." The proposal sparked immediate outrage from several representatives. Ambassador Krelvash stood quickly to object. "This is exactly the wrong approach. The humans have done nothing threatening. They've been cooperative and peaceful in all our interactions. Sending an ultimatum will be seen as an act of aggression. Better to be seen as aggressive than to be unprepared when they reveal their true intentions." Korval replied coldly. Dr. Vexhai requested permission to address the council as a scientific advisor. Council leader Zaramoth granted her request reluctantly. "Honorable representatives, I've studied the human records more thoroughly than anyone in the Confederation. Yes, humans are capable of violence and warfare, but they're also capable of incredible loyalty and cooperation. The key to understanding humans is that they respond to how they're treated." She activated a holographic display showing excerpts from the human historical records. "When humans are threatened, they become dangerous. When they're welcomed as friends, they become valuable allies. The ancient records show this pattern repeatedly throughout their history." "And what happens when they decide we're no longer useful as allies?" Korval challenged. "According to the records, humans maintain their friendships for generations. They have a concept called honor that prevents them from betraying allies without cause. But they also have a concept called justice that drives them to fight when they believe they've been wronged." The warning was clear, but the council seemed to miss its significance. The vote was called, and by a narrow margin, the ultimatum proposal passed. 3 days later, the message was transmitted to the Sol system. The ultimatum was formal and diplomatic in language, but clear in its threat. Humanity must agree to remain within their home system, limit their space exploration, and submit to regular inspections by Confederation forces. Failure to comply would result in military intervention. The human response came back within hours. It was brief and signed by someone called Admiral Marcus Torres of the United Earth Defense Command. "To the Zephyrian Confederation Council. We have received your ultimatum with disappointment but not surprise. Humanity has faced threats before and survived them all. We came in peace and offered friendship. You have chosen to respond with fear and threats. We respectfully decline your terms. Humanity will continue to explore the stars and seek out new civilizations, as is our right as a free species. If you wish to stop us, you are welcome to try. Admiral Torres, UEDC." Dr. Vexhai read the response with growing dread. The tone was polite but firm, and she recognized the pattern from the historical records. This was how humans responded when they felt cornered and threatened. "They're going to fight," she told Ambassador Krelvash privately. "The Council has just declared war on a species that has survived everything their own planet could throw at them. Surely they'll reconsider when they see our military strength," the ambassador replied. "Hopefully." Dr. Vexhai shook her head. "You don't understand. The ancient records show that humans don't surrender when faced with superior forces. They adapt, they innovate, and they find ways to win against impossible odds. We've just made the worst possible decision. Within weeks, Confederation sensors began detecting increased activity in the Sol system. Ships were being built, resources mobilized, and communications traffic suggested extensive military preparations. The Korvaxi Empire began assembling a task force to enforce the ultimatum, confident that their advanced technology and superior numbers would quickly convince the humans to submit. Dr. Vexhai submitted report after report warning about human military capabilities, their adaptability, and their refusal to accept defeat. Her warnings were filed away and largely ignored. The Confederation was about to learn what the ancient records had tried to tell them. Humans were most dangerous when they had nothing left to lose. And they had just taken away humanity's choice to remain peaceful. 6 months had passed since the Confederation's ultimatum, and the border monitoring stations had settled into a routine watch of the Sol system. The humans had been surprisingly quiet after their initial defiant response, leading many to believe they were reconsidering their position. Commander Velnak stood watch at Deep Space Monitoring Station 7, one of 12 facilities positioned around human space. Her orders were simple. Watch for any signs of human expansion and report immediately to the Korvaxi task force waiting in the nearby Theta Centauri system. Commander, I'm picking up some unusual energy readings, reported sensor technician Kexmal from his station. Velnax moved to the main display, expecting to see another routine cargo ship or scientific vessel. What she saw instead made her blood run cold. The sensors showed multiple massive energy signatures approaching from deep space. Not from the Sol system, but from the opposite direction entirely. The readings were unlike anything in the Confederation databases. How many contacts? She asked, her voice steady despite her growing alarm. Sensors show 37 distinct energy signatures. Commander, these ships are huge. Some of them are larger than our dreadnoughts. Velnak stared at the display in disbelief. That's impossible. The humans don't have the industrial capacity to build a fleet that size in 6 months. The first ships began dropping out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of Confederation space. What the sensors revealed defied everything the military planners had expected. The human fleet was a patchwork of different designs and technologies. Some ships looked sleek and advanced, clearly purpose-built warships. Others appeared to be converted civilian vessels, bristling with hastily added weapons and armor. A few looked like they had been assembled from spare parts and sheer determination, but they all had one thing in common. They radiated a sense of controlled menace that made even veteran military personnel nervous. Open a communication channel to the Korvaxi task force, Velnax ordered. Priority Alpha alert. Before the communication could be established, every screen in the monitoring station activated simultaneously. A human face appeared, older than Captain Chen, but with the same confident bearing. His uniform was different, more formal, with insignia that suggested high rank. Attention all Confederation forces and monitoring stations. This is Admiral Marcus Torres of the United Earth Defense Command. Our fleet has arrived at the edge of your space as promised. Admiral Torres paused, his expression serious but not threatening. 6 months ago, your council sent us an ultimatum. You demanded that humanity remain trapped in our home system, giving up our right to explore the stars and seek out new civilizations. We told you then that we respectfully declined your terms. The image switched to show the human fleet from external cameras. Even watching through screens, the sight was intimidating. The ships moved in perfect formation, their weapon systems powered but not targeting anything specific. We came to your space originally offering peace and friendship, Torres continued. You responded with fear and threats. That was your choice and we respect it. But understand this, humanity has survived ice ages, asteroid impacts, supervolcanic eruptions, and countless wars. We have never surrendered to bullies, and we don't plan to start now. Commander Velnax felt her hands trembling as she sent urgent reports to the Confederation fleet. The humans had not only built a massive fleet in 6 months, they had somehow positioned it to arrive from an unexpected direction. How did they get behind our monitoring stations? Kexmal whispered. The answer came as Admiral Torres continued his broadcast. For those wondering how we arrived undetected, let me explain. Humans are very good at learning from our mistakes. When you established monitoring stations around our home system, we studied your sensor networks, your patrol routes, and your tactical doctrines. External cameras showed more ships dropping out of faster-than-light travel, not just warships but what appeared to be mobile construction facilities, supply vessels. and even what looked like prefabricated space stations. We spent the last 6 months building not just a fleet, but a mobile civilization, Torres explained. These ships can operate independently for years if necessary. We've brought everything we need to establish permanent bases anywhere we choose. The tactical implications hit Velnax like a physical blow. The humans hadn't just built ships to fight a war. They had built ships to win a war and establish themselves permanently in galactic space. Now, I want to be very clear about our intentions, Admiral Torres said, his tone becoming more serious. We did not come here to conquer your worlds or harm your people. We came here to claim our right to exist as a free species in this galaxy. The image switched to show the lead human ship, a massive vessel that dwarfed even Confederation dreadnoughts. This is the Indomitable, flagship of the first human fleet. Behind me are 36 more ships crewed by volunteers who believe that no species has the right to cage another. Velnax watched as the human fleet began to spread out into a defensive formation. They weren't advancing aggressively, but they were positioning themselves to control a significant volume of space. We're going to establish bases in this region, Torres announced matter-of-factly. We're going to continue exploring the galaxy and making contact with other species. You can either accept this peacefully or you can try to stop us. The Admiral's expression grew cold. But understand that if you choose violence, we will respond in kind. Humans are very good at violence when we have no other choice. Within minutes, reports began flooding in from across the border region. 3 Korvaxi patrol squadrons had attempted to intercept human ships and had been effortlessly destroyed. The human tactics were unlike anything in Confederation military doctrine. They used psychological warfare, broadcasting human music and literature during combat. They employed unpredictable strategies that seemed to anticipate Korvaxi responses before they were made. Most disturbing of all, they fought with a casual disregard for losses that terrified their opponents. "Korvaxi Squadron 7 to all units," came a panicked transmission. "The humans are insane. They're ramming our ships with converted cargo vessels. We can't predict their tactics." Admiral Torres appeared on communication screens throughout Confederation space, his message being broadcast on all frequencies. "To the Korvaxi Empire and any other species considering military action against humanity. We tried peace first. You chose war. We're humans. We are exceptionally good at both." Dr. Vexhai sat in her laboratory on the research station, watching the reports flow in with a mixture of fascination and horror. Everything was happening exactly as the ancient records had predicted. When threatened with extinction, humans didn't surrender or negotiate. They adapted, innovated, and found ways to turn their weaknesses into strengths. The Confederation had expected a desperate defense of the Sol system. Instead, humans had built a mobile fleet capable of projecting power anywhere in the galaxy. "Dr. Vexhai, please report to the communications center immediately," announced the station computer. She arrived to find Commander Thelorin in heated discussion with representatives from multiple Confederation species. The main screen showed the current tactical situation, with human ships establishing positions throughout the border region. "Doctor, we need your expertise," the commander said urgently. "How do we negotiate with these humans? What do they want?" Vexhai studied the tactical displays, noting how the human fleet had positioned itself. They weren't trying to invade Confederation space or capture strategic resources. They were simply establishing a presence that would be impossible to dislodge. "They want exactly what they said from the beginning," she replied. "The right to exist as a free species and explore the galaxy. The question now is whether the Confederation will accept that or try to fight a war they cannot win. Surely our combined fleets can defeat 37 ships," Commander Thelorin said hopefully. Vexhai shook her head. "Those 37 ships represent something much more dangerous than a military force. They represent human determination. According to the ancient records, humans have never lost a war where their survival was at stake." Reports continued to arrive from the border region. The humans weren't advancing or attacking civilian targets. They were simply establishing bases and beginning to explore uninhabited systems. But any military force that approached them was quickly and efficiently destroyed. "They're not trying to conquer us," Vexhai realized. "They're trying to teach us a lesson." The lesson was becoming clear to military commanders throughout Confederation space. Humanity had demonstrated that they could build a fleet from nothing in 6 months, position it anywhere they chose, and defeat any force sent against them. More importantly, They had shown that they were willing to do all of this just to maintain their freedom to explore space. Admiral Torres broadcast one final message as human ships began establishing permanent bases in previously empty systems. To the Zephyrian Confederation and all species who value peace, humanity extends an open hand of friendship to any who wish to take it. We bear no grudge against those who acted from fear rather than malice. The image of the Admiral was replaced by scenes of human ships beginning construction of space stations and research facilities. We invite any species that wishes to learn from us or teach us to approach peacefully. We have much to offer as friends and allies. The broadcast ended with a simple statement that sent chills through every military planner in Confederation space. But remember this, we came in peace first. We tried diplomacy first. We offered friendship first. When you chose threats and ultimatums, we showed you why that was a mistake. Don't make us show you twice. The first human war, as historians would later call it, was over before it truly began. Humanity had established itself as a permanent presence in galactic civilization, not through conquest, but through the simple demonstration that they could not be caged. The ancient records had been right about everything. Humans were indeed impossible creatures who somehow made the impossible seem routine. And the galaxy would never be the same.